there's a lot of things we know, we all know effort and businesses and all that.
Okay, now we got everything going, there's too much. Hang on, Bill. I'm gonna turn the volumes down on my Jamie, if you fill yours.
Got it. Is it for me?
The possibly.
Still on. Hello.
Yeah, say something, Bill.
Hello, this is Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, are you getting a bunch of cross sections from us?
I saw, am I getting, did you,
I'm worried about the audio, Bill, if you're getting like multiple audio feeds.
okay, I'm having a hard time understanding you. I was getting a little feedback, if that's what you mean, a little echo,
Yeah,
but I'm not getting it now.
so you hear us clearly now?
Fairly well. Probably better if you took the mask off, but I understand.
Chat, folks. Yeah, I think Jamie's phone was still on, so her mic was picking up and getting the feedback loop.
Okay,
Okay,
as long as we don't have anybody else join inside the room, I guess.
Yeah, as long as you're the only computer in the room joining the meeting, we should be good.
So you're seeing, in our camera, you're just seeing mostly me in an empty room, right?
I'm seeing you in the empty room and me on the other side, and that's the only two people on the call that I can see now.
Okay. Ed, the bell was on just a minute
The
ago.
last name was Montague.
It's not a very wide angle camera I've got here, unfortunately.
And I thought, well, wouldn't that be Montague?
Right.
Although different people may pronounce it.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, you're coming by 4x5.
Okay,
It's Welch. And so she has a normal sort of English last name like Clark or something.
Yeah.
Her first name is Morphin.
Yeah.
Two D's in.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that crazy Welsh. Yeah. Oh, we had some friends that live in Wales and we went over.
Hey,
to see
Bill,
a couple of times. We were going to
little more
Scotland to
on-
see Jim's
Took a
family.
little more talk. I'm trying to figure out where I'm hearing you from.
Crazy.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, it looks like the sound's coming out of my computer and not the speakers in the room.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you hear Bill in the back, Marion?
Yes, I can.
Is he clear?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, check one more time, Bill.
okay, this is Bill. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the back of the room?
Barely.
Barely.
Quite well here.
Well,
Okay,
that's no surprise if it's coming out of your computer, I guess.
yeah, we need to be sending the sound over the HDMI cable.
Recorded you by now, but
Right.
Maybe everybody's.
I think we can sit.
Yeah, that's.
noise back there, you wouldn't be heard.
If there's people mumbling in the background.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we'd have to have a room dead silent.
Yeah.
Mute displays, don't want to do that. Display muted. That's up all the way.
Greg, we just ended up sticking $1,000 in for an equipment budget.
Oh.
And if at some point the mirror recoding is going to happen, we'll just have to bring it to the GA if it's more than $1,000.
Yeah, I need to get it. It's hard to find mirror coders nowadays.
Mm,
Hey, Bill, say something.
Hello, this is Bill testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, that's
Still out of the laptop.
Is that better?
You're about the same. You're clear to the first few rows anyway. Don't see anything that's like tying the audio to the HDMI. One thing I could look at, we got an audio cable, we could plug it into the PC.
yeah. One of those cables, is it one of those cables? maybe?
These are just USBs.
Hmm.
Is
I
this-
wonder if this volume is just for this lapel mic.
I have no idea. I think,
There's something, okay,
Kind of using up all your connections to your laptop already, aren't you?
I've got one more. I got
Oh, I see.
what is wireless? On there,
that's probably this device over here, the walk around speaker.
okay,
Okay, but some other guys won't get in. Let me do some admitting here.
well, at this point, I mean, it's almost 7:30 and we don't have enough
We
people.
just have to tell everybody. sit
Hey,
close.
Chris,
Evening.
yeah. We
How
don't, okay, we're trying
Pretty
to
good. We've got
work on the scene.
an audio issue that I'm only getting people on the Zoom's meeting, his voice is coming only out of my computer speakers.
Instead of out of any kind of speakers
Yeah, I
associated with the
was
screen.
hoping to go down the HDMI cable and come out. It doesn't seem to want to do that.
Well, we don't have that many people. That might not actually be a problem.
Yeah, okay.
Probably gonna be, we don't have a quorum to approve the budget.
Unless a bunch of people are on the Zoom.
Yeah,
How
there,
many do we need for a quorum?
well, 20, something like that. And strictly speaking, people on Zoom
Don't
count.
qualify?
don't count, yeah, Terry and I consulted and decided that since we were back in person, we would return to the
Normal rules?
The normal rules, yeah, which say people have to be here.
Bill, can you hear Joyce talking all right?
I believe that's Joyce that I hear. Yes,
We're just talking about budgets.
yes,
Yeah, that's-
unfortunately.
The fun part of the meeting.
Yeah. What everybody looks forward to.
So right now, we only have what? We have 9 participants.
Well, that meeting room looks pretty empty to me.
It is, Ron.
All right, Ron.
About 6 of us.
I'll take 2 seats and spread out.
Closer.
Yeah, we-
Closer into the camera view. Okay.
Make a motion that everyone in the room gets to vote twice. We all have to hands.
We need a quorum for
All
that.
right, we're in camera view. Woo! Jeff. Jeff.
Now it's not so empty.
Oh, we just doubled the audience.
Yeah.
More than
That's
that, now I
exactly
see a
what
bunch
we're
of them coming in.
Great
I'm
job.
gonna make a sign that we can stick, when he comes back in here,
Is he
sign.
supposed to be taking tips from people when they come in? He's like, $7
At least give them a mug, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
We should make a Zoom background of our busiest meeting ever. We can just make that our background.
That's our default when Weinberg was here, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's a great idea.
Yep. We do have pictures from that.
okay, I'm gonna go give this to Jim and we can wait for a few minutes and see if we can get a few more people.
I left my favorite extra 19 at home, so I can't vote for 2.
When you're on the Zoom, on the YouTube, can you tell how many people are looking in?
I have been able to in the past and just.
Yeah, there should be in the corner, I can't remember if it's the upper right or upper left. They'll tell you how many people are viewing.
Okay.
I'm seeing 9 participants right now.
Yeah, 10 participants for the Zoom meeting, about 7 or 8 in the room, and we're checking YouTube now.
Now I see 10.
Yep.
I only see 3. Slow to update.
Hi, Philip.
And hey, Chris. Say hi to you. So
So, in particular, I was looking for the name and contact information for the guy who did the Lego Actera mechanism.
oh, yes, that's right.
Yes, because Mark Martin up at RCA would really like to have that contact information so they can try to get him.
Oh, we got
Okay.
that easy. We can
And
get
Yeah.
What I'll also do is I'll send
so-
you Mark's email. And I'll forward your email to him with an introduction.
Bill, if you just say a few words, I want to know if the Zoom audience is hearing you okay.
This is Bill testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep, I can hear.
Okay.
Came over loud and clear.
Key to another.
Okay, great.
It's like, hey, you're both in the same business. you know?
Exactly, and it's just wonderful.
Ed wants to know if Bill be providing notes from his talk.
No, I do not possess such a thing. Sorry.
Okay.
And here long distance.
Suggested a country.
Okay, we still have people coming in.
I'll ask Mark. I'll ask Mark about that.
But he was great, you know, back and forth and then was.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw the write-up on his talk at RCA, I thought like, wow, where'd they get this crank from?
Okay,
Yeah.
Bill, why don't you
Sound-
share your screen here? And let's just test that out.
But,
All right, let me give that a try. Share screen.
cool.
It says here, host disable participant screen sharing.
Okay, let me fix that.
Okay.
Pretty minimal costs.
Yes, using, well, did you ever watch?
Tony, is Jess gonna be here?
I'm on Zoom.
Okay, you're with
Okay.
us in spirit.
Okay, Bill, you should be able to share now.
Okay.
Cheap and free cycle
Yeah.
I just hit the share button.
Prediction and capture, that's a little.
Okay, we see it on our screen and on projectors.
And you should see the moon filling the whole screen now.
Yep.
It
Okay.
sure works for me.
Are you planning to play some audio or?
There's a small amount of audio. It's not important, but I'm planning to do some.
Okay.
We can test that. Can we test the audio?
Yeah, if you can get to it pretty quickly.
If you wanted to learn more about the history of the Earth and other rocky planets in the solar system,
Did you hear that narration just then?
Yes, it came across just fine.
Great. Thanks,
Very
Ron.
well.
It's good here too. I think
I'm going to turn my volume up to maximum, and if it's too loud, just let me know.
Okay,
That.
So I will unshare now.
okay.
Okay, I have unshared.
Okay. I'm gonna. Put up the minutes. There's 2 pages, so I'll put 1 page at a time. Anybody wants to read through those? See how many people are here.
Pass this donation on. It is a time.
You don't have a forum.
Employee out of Houston who lives in Oldham. Does testing and repair for Tiger machines. Houston ordered a plain wave 12-inch with a full mount setup. And
Vaguely aware of what you're talking about, but yeah.
plain wave as well. Let me put it this way. Just the optical tube for that.
Okay,
is $10,000.
are you recording?
The YouTube is recording. I'll also start a recording here to the local machine.
Yeah. Okay, we forgot last time, so I just wanted to make sure we remembered this time.
All right, showtime.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and start. I appreciate all of you who came, and I appreciate everybody who's on. Zoom. So, welcome, and do we have anybody here who's new? I think I know most everybody, so nobody needs to introduce themselves as a new person. Okay. Yeah, that's a good thought, Tony. Anybody on Zoom who wants to introduce themselves as a new member or, probably not a guest, but a new member? Okay, guess not. All right, here's the first page of the minutes, if everybody's looked through that maybe, and here's the second page of the minutes. We'll look through that real quick.
Zoom. All right.
Yeah.
I move we approve them.
Yes, that's like what the name says on his announcements.
No, those may not be visible to the people on Zoom unless, let's see.
Yeah, well,
That's not gonna look through that.
no, well, it's
I believe they're in the sidereal times too.
no.
They're not. Oh, okay.
They
I
go-
thought I saw them, but
They go in the sidereal times after they've been approved at a meeting. So there's a bit,
oh, gotcha.
yeah, like these will be in the September newsletter. So, all right, well, nobody has any questions or concerns. We'll consider that they're approved.
Approved.
Some of us in the EC have looked at them and think we're probably okay. My agenda here, so, officer reports, let's see, Jamie, Vice President.
It's ready to get up there. Well, I guess should, if there's a camera. Do I have? Hello, I'll make this quick because Bill's going to talk, and thank you, Bill, for being here. I'm very excited about that. And then the only thing I have to report is that we do have speakers lined up for September and October. September is going to be Dr. Slava Turashev. I did send an email to the EC out about him, and he's also, I've got him on the website, who's going to be speaking about imaging exoplanets using our sun as a gravitational lens. That'll be very interesting. And then Tom Esposito in October that I met here at South by Southwest, who was representing Unistellar at the time. Excuse me. And he's also working part-time with SETI in California. So both these guys are in California. It's going to be another one of these Zoom meetings, but should be really good. And I heard back from Lara as far as this room, it's still pending. Only because they haven't got the schedule finalized, and there's now an extra step. She has to submit here and then it has to go there. But she's going to let me know as soon as it's finalized, but it looks like a sure thing. We'll be able to stay in this room. And yeah, I think that's the deal. Oh, and I also contacted somebody over at Austin Gem and Mineral Society about our holiday party, and I haven't heard anything back yet. I might sit and drag on.
Is there anything to say about talking to ACC as a meeting place?
We
don't have anything.
Yeah, I had said September, and so I'm going to ask Jamie to go with me to talk to somebody at ACC about that possibility.
Yeah, a lot of
September to talk about it, not September to
Sure.
move there. But yeah.
Cool. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie.
Taking all that out. But I know you like it, but still, thank you.
All right.
Hey, somebody's doing good with the camera now.
Good. Okay, let's look at the treasurer's report. Oh, can they see that, Terry, or on Zoom or not? Doesn't really matter. The treasurer's report was in the newsletter today, or that came out today. If you're really interested in it, it says we took in some money and we spent some money, and we have some money. So that's pretty much it. We don't have to approve it or anything, but if you're interested, it is in the newsletter. Okay, let's see. Who else is here? Chris.
Yes.
Member Services.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all in person and online. So we had our July member services or member star party a few weeks ago. Had a great turnout, had about 25 individuals, 15 cars. A lot of new folks were there, which was really exciting. If you were one of those, welcome. Glad to see you. Saw some kids, which is always exciting. As well, we have our next member star party coming up on August 27th at Bad Wolf Ranch. We'll probably, I know there's been some discussion about trying to do a little more organization. So for those folks leaving early, we'll try to make sure people's cars are pointed the right direction. They're not blasting everybody with headlights. So I think it was a great tighten up some of our dark sky protocols. So keep a lookout for that. But I'd love to find more ways to help all the first timers. We had a lot of them really come to these meetings and be a part of all the great events we have here at the Astronomical Society. Just a note, in September we'll be at Pedernales Falls State Park. And then we don't have one in October right now, but we will meet again in November back at Pedernales State Park. So more to come there. And yeah, any questions? Yes.
I have a comment about the headline.
Yes.
I was on both parties and I saw this. The defense of some people, because I have a Golf Volkswagen Golf and you cannot switch off the lights. Yeah. So you have to go into the board electronics and change the settings there. I hope it is possible at all. But there's no position where you can actually switch off the lights.
So I'll be around after the meeting. If you have any ideas on the best ways to handle that, let me know. I mean, one thought is you have a field that's, you got your early leavers and you've got a field maybe that's going to be those who are going to be out past a certain time. I have an older car which has no off switch as well. My dad had a car where if the emergency brakes was on, then headlights would go off. So he would drive out a star party with his emergency brakes on, keep
Well,
headlights
you only
on.
need one or two clicks on the emergency brake and that will disable headlights to some degree.
I will try that. So
Yes, I guess it's mainly finding the settings, and if somebody finds out how to do it, right, then we can communicate with
there we go.
other members. That would be helpful. And then
Well-
leaving the field at the other point, we just put reflectors in. I had to get out of the car. I had my didn't headlight, not didn't, but just very, very low light.
There is a long discussion on cloudy nights about this very topic. So I'm not sure I can give you the search words off the top of my head. But yeah, if you go on cloudy nights and look at star party etiquette, dark sky protocols, long discussions about various cars and what can be done. I think the best advice I saw out there is gaffer's tape, and I can talk about that a little more later. Maybe.
So I want to congratulate you all. I mean, it was exciting to see so many first timers out there. And so I think that was a really big achievement for all of us. So talk to me afterwards if you have ideas on that. Terry, I look forward to touch base with you. We don't have a date yet, but I think we will put something together for the holiday season, sometime November, December. So just put that on your radar as well, and more to come.
Yeah, we usually have the holiday party on our normal December meeting night. So, yeah, unless for some reason we can't get the facility or whatever. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Terry, communications, do you have anything to report?
Not a lot. Didn't make much progress this month. We are getting ready to get started with the Little Green Light outfit, about ready to actually download their stuff. You can examine it for 30 days and kind of see how easy it would be to migrate, all of our personnel data into their system. There's also some consulting you can get from them at that stage. If we have questions about how to set things up. So I was thinking after downloading it, get a little work on it, set up a meeting and then call some of the rest of you guys in to talk about it. So hopefully we can get that done this month. But I know some people have been questioning, why we're doing this. And the largest component of our communications expense is wild apricot, which is mainly just handling our participant, our membership management. And we're paying something like $2,500 a year for that, where we could be doing it with about $45 a month for Little Green Light. So.
Okay.
More telescopes.
Yeah. Greg, equipment?
Here, give a guess. Give a guess.
Okay, so progress on the 12-foot dome for Pedernales is that all the parts for the dome are out at the state park, including the support and rotation ring for it. I've talked to to John Alvis about ordering the building from Explore Home. I haven't heard about any progress on that yet. But that, at least our part of that is completed. See, we're still in the process of dismantling the 12 by 12 building that the dome was sitting on. And then we also still have the double roll-off observatory to dismantle as well. And I will be talking to Inks Lake State Park about that building. See, in the meantime, we picked up 2 more donations this month. One is a really sweet scope, actually. It's a Takahashi. I think it's about 7" or 7 1/4. I don't remember what it's millimeter. I don't remember what the number is off the top of my head. And then in addition, we picked up a 10" LX200 today, which looks like its electronics are probably fried. But I will be talking to Sidereal Technology because I believe they have a retrofit kit that replaces those electronics entirely with the same system that's on the Spike Eyes.
Nice.
So I think that would be the way to go with that, rather than trying to repair the original electronics, which from what I understand is not reliable in the long run anyway. Let's see. The other thing is that the individual who passed on this donation today is in fact a repair and test rep for Takahashi out of Houston. So he's a very valuable contact, and that Takahashi scope will be going out to his place for thorough testing and tuning if required. The other thing was that the same individual passed along a hot tip. So if anybody knows anyone with deep pockets and a thirst for beautiful pictures, Takahashi in Houston ordered a 12.5" plane wave telescope with a full mount and control system. It was delivered late, and so the order was canceled. It's sitting on the docks at Planewave, and they want it gone. And so now Takahashi is willing to make a deal to make that happen. So get out your golden fiddles.
What kind of number are we talking about?
Huh?
What is the list on this device?
Well, I don't know the details on the mount. I will tell you that I do know the details on the optical tube, and this is it's a corrected Dahl Kirkham.
Okay.
The 12.5" optical tube runs around 10,000. So with the mount, probably another
10.
4 or 5. I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's deeper than my pocket.
So yeah, you might be talking like, second mortgage, sell the boat. I'm not sure what.
My wife wants to paint the house and fix the electronics and.
Yeah. Trip to Vegas.
Have dinner and. And she'd rather.
We're talking dreams here, folks. But I'm sure somebody out there has got some money burning in their hole in a pocket. So first one that comes along gets a good deal on a plane wave. That's it.
Okay. Any questions for Greg?
Joyce, I just want to thank also Domingo, Star Party. He was out there in triple digit weather digging a latrine. So kudos to him. And there's also a gentleman I just met the first time, I forgot his name, but whoever was with Domingo, thank you for your help also. But they spent a full day out there and really looked through hot weather and got some good progress done. So future benefit for all of us.
Great. This is at Bad Wolf.
Yeah, Bad Wolf. Thank you.
Just talking about you. Okay. Ed LaBelle, did I see you on Zoom?
You do?
You want to talk about outreach?
Yeah, we had 3 outreach events in July. They're in the newsletter. The upcoming outreach we have tomorrow is at Fresno State Park and Public Star Party. Next Saturday, it would be at Inks Lake, another Public Star Party. And then we're in conversations with Frank Michael from St. Stephen's about trying to do Austin Under the Stars on Saturday, October 22nd, because
It's the moon in the middle.
But seems like the star parties are going very well. And in the interest of time, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yay.
And I know that you and Stephen had discussed the possibility that tomorrow's weather might not be great, but you're going to make a decision and let everybody know tomorrow afternoon.
Correct. About 3 o'clock, I'll send something out. Right now, I think I have 10 volunteers signed up for it. So, and I gave Steve the option that if you know, it's cloudy. It's like last time we went out, it was cloudy, right? We can still do the sky orientation stuff. And if we just can't see anything well, then we'll cancel at that point.
Okay. So, all right. Thanks, Ed. Let's see here. Any of the members at large? I think Tony's the only member at large who's here. You got anyone? Okay.
I'm good.
Nathan sent out the newsletter today, this morning. So I don't know, is Jake on? Does Jake have anything?
I don't see Jake signed in.
Okay, all right. Well, Jake's our webmaster, but he's not here. Jess, do you have anything to say about IDA?
I put a little blurb in the newsletter about the last advocates meeting that I thought was interesting about the birds. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, thanks. Dawn, I see you're on. Do you have anything to say about as Alcor?
Yes, actually, we have a couple things. First off, you'll see in the Sidereal Times for this month a wonderful article that Susie Soderquist wrote about her time at Alcon in Albuquerque. So please make sure to give that a good read. Also wanted to announce that there is a new actually, I've spoken probably about it in the last couple meetings, but the Astronomical League has the Observing Challenge Globular Clusters on their website. That challenge started on July 1st and is still running through September 30th. And if you did any of the James Webb Challenge observing those sketches and details need to be submitted by the 20th. Other than that, the only other news I have is to let me know if you have anything going on for October, especially if Austin Under the Stars occurs, as we will post that on the Hill Country Alliance Hill Country Night Sky Month website calendar, as that is coming up closely upon us, running October 1st through October 30th. And starting Monday, we enter very early on the fall bird migration season. So Lights Out Texas and the Texas Audubon will be putting a lot of information out on that. So there's information on how to both volunteer and also just in general practices to do to ensure a safe bird migration for this fall season.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's all of the officers. I'm gonna put the budget up. We're gonna talk about it real briefly, but we did not have a quorum to approve the budget. So we will have to carry it over to next month. And I think that'll be okay. But let me just go through it quickly. I sent out a couple of emails and made a couple of points about the budget. One of which is that our largest expense is for capital expenses at Back Wolf, because we've done a lot of work there. We're continuing to do work there. Website expense is another big one. And as Terry said, we are making efforts to cut our costs on that. And then the other one that's, well, insurance, not a whole lot we can do about insurance, but we're paying a lot for a storage facility, and we're working to try to empty that, to get telescopes to Pedernales and do something with the other ones. I had an email from Jim Moyle who said, we need to have an auction to get rid of some of the things that are cluttering up our storage. And I said, yes, we've been talking about that. So that's something we need to organize and possibly look forward to. So the main thing on the budget I want to point out, and I've said this a couple of times in emails I sent this week, is that as the budget is formulated at this point, we have a deficit of $5,868, and we may not have that much in the end. We may spend less on some things. Certainly, we are attempting to lower those expenses, but we do need to start thinking about ways that we could bring in some more money, either increase in dues, which have been the same in the 15 years that I've been in AAS, or other fundraising ideas, donations, grants, whatever. So the EC is going to be working on a survey to go out to members to get the feeling of what people would like to do, how they feel that we can bring some more money in.
Bake
So
sales, bake sales.
Bake sales, yeah, okay. I'll put you down for 12 dozen cupcakes.
Okay. Blonde brown is what we do.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. But yeah, we've talked about this for a long time, and now we're just kind of at the point where we need to do something, because we can't continue to have deficits like this. We've spent the money on good projects, do not regret spending the money at all, but we're going to have to kind of figure out how we can balance out our expenses and our income a little bit better. So look for a survey. So you can give us some ideas and your feedback about what you're willing to do.
Hello, Gene, this is Bill Spizzirri. Can I make a comment?
Sure.
You may know I live near Houston, and I'm active with a couple of clubs in this area, and they get significant money from the oil companies. Now, I know you're not in Houston, right? But you're still in Texas. And they like that the astronomy clubs do all the outreach to the public. Okay. And so that is the kind of thing that they like to contribute to. And I'll be honest with you, I've never been involved in it, but if you, I would suggest you look into it if there's a way to do that, because they sometimes can be very generous.
Thank you, Bill. That's a great idea. And that's exactly the kind of feedback that we need from members. Anybody who has ideas about how we can get money that other than paying it ourselves, and we may have to pay ourselves a little bit more, but there's other money out there. We just need to figure out where it is and how to get it. So
the oil companies are not hurting for funds right now.
No, I can tell that every time I go to fill my tank, but yeah. Okay, great, thanks.
I wrote it down, thank you.
Anybody have anything else that they need to announce? Or Jamie?
About the budget, does it have to be a quorum here? Can members vote on it? Don't members vote?
Members vote, but we said we're going back to what our bylaws say, which is there's no absentee voting. It's people, and it was said in a couple of emails this week that it has to be people who are here.
The members.
Yeah,
I got you.
So now this is something that we talked about, because we had to kind of fudge a little bit when we did elections during the pandemic, because strictly speaking, we weren't supposed to be doing that voting on Zoom, but we had no alternative. And we said, we kind of need to change the bylaws. So just in case something ever happens again, which we hope it doesn't, but we may need to add that to our flexibility. I'm sorry, what?
You can add that to our EC agenda for the next.
Yeah.
Bylaws.
We do need to do some bylaws amendments, and that's one of the things that we have in mind that we need to do, but we haven't done that yet. So we're kind of at the point. We'll just have to kind of chalk it up for next month and see if we can get about 10 more people here, so we can feel like we have a quorum in attendance. Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the EC for keeping the flame alive. Okay, this is my first face-to-face, and I'm so happy to be here, and I'm glad that you guys have kept this whole thing going through this hard time of remote membership. And so while the restart is rocky, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're redoing it, and this is great. So keep it up, guys. This is so much fun to have.
We appreciate your thoughts, and I think we were all determined that we were going to continue and not go the way of some other things and some other businesses during the pandemic. And now hopefully we can kind of, we're operating at some different things, on a different basis now. The thing with having a Zoom meeting at the same time we're here. So there's always change, and we have to adapt to it. I hope we can continue to do that. So thank you, Andrew. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we are ready for our program. Jamie, you want to come up and introduce Bill?
We'll switch this to HDMI, right?
Thanks for all the work. This one, this quick one. And then Terry, in the 2 years during the pandemic as president.
Volunteered to be the president.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, she was trying to get away. She was trying to retire. We're like,
Oh, well, it's retirement.
we got you. So anyway, hey guys, Jamie, the new VP. So as vice president, my main job is to gather. Where's the camera?
Camera's right here.
Camera's
Oh,
weird.
there we go. That's the HDMI cable that Dawn was talking about. Okay. Yeah, my job is to arrange venues and speakers. So I got a couple I mentioned that are coming up in the next couple months, but tonight we got Bill Spizzirri, who used to be a member of this club. And unfortunately, it was long enough ago that I never met him in person, but I've had the honor of having a couple of phone conversations with him in the past couple of weeks. And it's just been wonderful. This guy has been everywhere, and he has has had a lot of experience. Now, in the email that Joyce sent, you know, a mainframe software engineer from way back, and studying astronomy for many years, and he does belong to many clubs, and he works with outreach. He worked with outreach here with AAS, and especially likes working with kids. And he lives now outside of Houston with his own grandkids. So that's why he's remote. Maybe we can get him back to Austin sometime, because he has a phenomenal list of all different topics that he's ready to do presentations on. And of course, he presented to our group before. You may remember, I think it was January when he did the one about the elements, my favorite thing. So just wonderful stuff. And I've seen some other YouTube videos online of his presentations. And he had a nice long list of different topics that he's knowledgeable on and experienced in. And so it was really hard to narrow it down, but we did pick this one. Thanks, Bill, for helping me with that. And a couple folks made suggestions. And that's it. I'm honored to know you, and looking forward to the talk. So here's Mr. Bill Spizzirri.
Okay, thank you for that. First, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you folks. One thing I want to say quickly is, at one point while someone who was speaking during the meeting there, the internet hung up. I don't know if that was me, but my experience has been, if you are logged into Zoom and you could just shut off your camera, that might eliminate those kinds of problems. I'm not telling you what to do, it's just an idea to think about. I guess I will share my screen now, and I'll try to do this.
We got it.
Lights off.
And
That's the only speaker we have.
no, that's wrong. Okay, so the surface of the moon should be filling the screen now, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, very good, very good. I will try to talk loud. So this in 2019, you might have heard, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing. The Johnson Space Center Astronomy Club asked me to put together a presentation about the moon for the public. And so I knew everybody was going to be talking about Apollo, and they did. So I wanted to do something different. So I did this presentation. It's more about the moon physically. Okay. And so that's where this came from. So 21 facts about the moon, plus there's a few extras there, but I'm not charging you extra for that. The title is Our One and Only Moon. And before we even get into the 21, I want to talk about why it's our one and only. And I'm assuming you see the chart now?
Yes.
Oh, and can you see my cursor on the left?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so we have one moon. That's no surprise to anybody. And you can see the numbers here. Mercury and Venus have none. We got one. Mars got two. And, you know, they're like captured asteroids. They're even hard to see. But doggone it, Jupiter and Saturn, right now the count 79 and 82. The so-called provisional moons are ones that have been sighted in a documented fashion, but we don't have good orbits for them. I think that means also that they're not named yet. But there's a lot of moons between them, that's for sure. Uranus 27, I didn't really know that they had that many. Neptune 14, and another planet, Pluto, has 5. Don't get me started. Okay, so that we only got the one. So that's what I'm going to talk about. All right, item number 1 is how big is it? Well, in this picture here, lower right-hand corner, you can see the Earth and the Moon. You can see the relative size. You can also see Venus and Mars, and in the upper left, you can see Mercury, and all the rest of these little objects are moons and asteroids. And so you can see how the Moon compares to them. It's still smaller than Mercury, and it's bigger than a lot of those moons, but the biggest moon in the solar system is Ganymede, one of the largest moon of Jupiter. And you can see it's definitely bigger than our moon. And, you know, when I'm an old guy, so I can say when I was a kid, we thought Titan was the biggest moon in the solar system because we didn't know it had an extensive atmosphere. And we were kind of adding that to its diameter when people took images. And then we found out it had an atmosphere. You subtract that out and we can see Ganymede's bigger now. So, but this is where the moon compares to everything else.
Atmosphere counts.
Planets and moons in the solar system. Gives you an idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, your audio cut out for about 10 seconds.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Well, I'm hoping you can hear me now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Did you hear the part about Titan and Ganymede?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. The rest of it's, no big deal. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Let me know if that happens. I hope not. So also when we talk about the size, you can compare it to the United States. The moon's a little bit more than 2,000 miles in diameter, and so is the United States. So as it states in the upper left, the moon is the round thing, and there's the US, and I live near Houston, so that's why the arrow points over there. But, well, you know where you are, right? I'm over here, Austin. Well, I used to live there. Oh, by the way, someone mentioned I used to be a member of the club. Yes, that's true, but I am a member of the club right now. I'm pretty sure I'm up to date on my dues, just FYI. Okay, so you can get an idea of how big it is, okay? And item number 3 is how far the moon is now on average. And as you can see the number there, it's approximately 239,000 miles. And average is underlined, and we'll talk more about that. In this picture is taken from a spacecraft. I did not take this photograph. You can see the Earth and the moon. I think the moon's about 4 or 5 pixels there in this image, but you get a feeling for the distance. The moon's about 2,000 miles across, the Earth's about 8,000 miles, and you can see the space in between there. So this was live and in color from a spacecraft. And as I said, it says that's what the distance is on average. Okay, now, because 2.5 billion years ago, it was only 205,000 miles away. And that's because every year the moon moves about 1.5 inches further from the Earth. It moves away from the Earth about the same speed that your fingernails grow. Okay, more or less. And the reason for that is that the tides, the gravitational tugs between the Earth and the moon and the oceans have something to do with it, slow the moon's orbit down just a little bit, and I mean a real little bit. And the gravitational mechanics are such that if you're going slower and you're going to stay in a stable orbit, you're going to move out further away. And so it's moving out 1.5 inches every year. But don't worry. You and your great-grandchildren will still be able to see it. Matter of fact, you will hardly be able to tell a difference in many earthly lifetimes. But that's how far away it is now on average. Another thing about the distance between the Earth and the moon, this is just sort of trivia. I couldn't resist. If you took all the planets, including Pluto, and you just stacked them up, chock-a-block there, between the Earth and the moon, they just about fill up the space. And of course, the asterisk by Saturn means not counting the rings. As you can see, they tilted them out of the way there. So I don't know what you do with this fact, but it just helps you maybe to understand both the distance to the moon and the size of the planets. Okay, item number 4. The orbit of the moon around the Earth is not a circle. It's a shape called an ellipse, which is a mathematical concept, but it's kind of like an oval. So sometimes it's closer to the Earth and sometimes it's further from the Earth. All right, when it's the closest point to the Earth, they call that the perigee. When it's the furthest point from the Earth, they call that the apogee. So if you recall, if you're taking notes, before we were talking about the average 239,000 miles. When it's closest, it's only 225,000 miles away. And at its furthest, 252,000 miles away. So there's 30-some thousand miles of difference. On the bottom, you see those 2 horizontal lines. I put those there so you can kind of see, oh boy, there is a, quote, significant difference, unquote, between perigee and apogee in terms of how it looks from Earth, right? But it's really hard to tell. I have looked at this, and when the full moon is rising in the east, and I know it's perigee or apogee, I look and I go, yeah, I guess it might look a little bigger or it might look a little smaller, but I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to say. And also with the perigee, when you get a full moon and it's at the perigee, that's when the weatherman at night at 10 o'clock tells you, oh, we're having a super moon tonight. And the meaning of that is nothing. Okay, it's that means it's close and it's a full moon. So, don't mark it in your calendar or anything, or maybe you can if you want. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. For my money, it ain't super as such. So that's the distance of the moon. Item number 5 here. As you might know, the one side of the moon always faces the Earth. The main reason for that is that the moon turns on its axis just like Earth does, and that's approximately 28 days, which is exactly more or less exactly the same amount of time it takes the moon to orbit the Earth. And if you work out that geometry in your head, that means the one side of the moon always faces the Earth, and we refer to it as the near side. And the other side that we never see from Earth is the far side. And as you can see in this picture, they look very different from each other. That's for sure. You have all the dark areas on the near side. You've got some on the far side, but very, very few. And of course, the dark areas are lava-filled areas. And the ancients referred to those as the seas, such as the Sea of Tranquility. Okay. I guess they thought they were water, but that's what they called them. And so another big difference between the near side and the far side, as it says on the bottom, is that the crust, the hard crust the cool crust on the moon is much, much thicker on the far side than it is on the near side. 15 miles on the near side, 40 miles on the far side. The reason we know that is we sent a spacecraft there. Oh boy, it must be at least 10 years ago, maybe 15, I'm not sure. A spacecraft called Grail, and its primary function was to measure the gravity on the moon, and had a more or less equatorial orbit. And so it could measure the gravitational pull, and they knew that the crust was mostly responsible for that. And so in other words, by measuring the gravitational pull, they could measure the thickness of the crust. So they came up with those numbers of 15 miles on our side, 40 miles on the other. And then if you're looking on the far side on the right, you'll see this generally circular gray, darker gray area here, which is referred to as the Aitken Basin, which is the result of a giant impact there a couple of billion years ago. We're going to talk more about it later. And it is believed now that impact, this is the biggest basin on the moon. So that means it was a very large impact, very large object, probably moving at a high rate of speed. And it, of course, caused this huge basin, which has since been obscured by many other impacts. But the impact was so great that it sent shock waves kind of like the shock waves you get on Earth during an earthquake, all the way through the moon to the other side. And if you're talking about the other side from the Aitken Basin, you're talking about the upper left-hand corner of the near side here in this image. And it's believed that with the thinner crust, the shock waves from that Aitken impact caused a lot of the cracks in the crust here, which means the mantle, the lava, came up through the cracks and filled this much, much larger number of basins here. And so that is the theory that explains those two things. Okay. Oh, by the way, questions. I can do the questions however you guys want, before or after, whatever you want to do. I got to be in bed by midnight though. So, but other than that, I can stay and answer questions as long as you want. Okay, that was item number 5. Oh, here's another part of item number 5. Recently, China sent a spacecraft to go to the far side of the moon. And it took this nice photograph of the far side of the moon with the Earth. It's a nice photo. And that's nothing more interesting than that. Just wanted to show that to you. We don't get to see the far side that often. I don't care how big of a traveler you are. It's tough to see. Okay, item number 6. There's a lot of craters on the moon. So let's have some fun right now, okay? This is a fun lunar activity, okay? Let's count the craters, all right? All right? And you guys count with me. We're going to start in the lower right-hand corner, okay? So here's 1. If you see my cursor, 2, 3, then these are small ones, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Wait a minute, did I count this one? Oh, never mind. We'll start again. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what? I don't think we're going to get to all of them tonight. So there's lots of craters. Obviously, you can see. You look at this picture here. There's a very small piece of the moon. A lot of craters. By the way, people do try to count them. But anyway, so how many craters? Well, first of all, every inch of the moon has a crater. Right? They refer to that as saturation cratering. The only way you could make a crater on the moon now is to obliterate another crater to some extent, because it's all craters. And every single one of those craters was caused by an impact of an asteroid or a comet, a big rock from space. Now, I say everyone. However, I believe there is a number that you could count on one hand that some people think may be volcanic in origin as opposed to impact craters. However, you know, I'm not certain about that. But there's a couple. Most of these craters are from billions of years ago, although, and doggone it, I could have added it to this presentation. You know, we have telescopes looking at the moon all the time, every night. And we see impacts very, very frequently. And they're making craters. And most of them are very, very small. You get a 2-meter crater of a 620-meter crater. It's not going to show up in a picture like this, or mostly anyone's picture.
We just went through the Perseids, so surely the Perseids were hitting the moon also. So, you know, cratering events are happening all the time, correct?
All the time. And I don't think the Perseids started when I started watching them in the 1960s. Okay. They've been going on for a lot longer than that, as well as many, many other meteor showers. And then again, meteors that aren't even in showers. Okay. So it's a rough neighborhood out there. And I'm sure you're right about that. And the Perseids, they're probably making some craters as we're speaking tonight. And so the question is, how many? Well, the answer is, yeah, there's people out there who have time on their hands and they've tried hard to count them. And so the answer is somewhere between 1 million and 1 billion, depending on how small a crater you want to count. I mean, look in the upper right-hand corner here, you'll see this largest crater, and I see these 3 little ones. Well, these 3 little ones here are maybe 100 meters across or something like that. I'm just guessing, right? Well, there's a lot of craters that are a lot smaller than that. So if you want to count the 6-foot craters, first of all, good luck on photographing, observing them and documenting them. But counting them, boy, you know, you're going to have to quit your day job, right? So between 1 million and 1 billion. And however, the International Astronomical Union, you know, the guys who said Pluto wasn't a planet, those guys, pardon me, go ahead.
Those bastards.
I would never say anything like that. they officially recognize and name and document 9,137 of them. So that's a big number of craters when you think about it to have names, right? And then the people who are just so hot to count all these craters are trying to come up with a scheme to use artificial intelligence, to look at imagery to count them. And maybe they'll get that to do it, and we'll get a better number than between 1 million and 1 billion. That's a pretty wide range. So lots of craters. Okay, here's another thing. If you look at this picture here on the left-hand side, that crater's got a mountain in the middle of it. And I think there's one up here. I have a display up here that's blocking it, but I think there's another one up here that also has a mountain in the middle of it. Oh, here's one in the lower right. It's got a mountain in the middle of it. And that is very common, not on the moon, but also on other solid bodies that have craters. And here's a picture of one on the left with a nice big mountain. And this, by the way, happens to be my favorite crater, Tycho. Don't get started. I know you all have your favorite crater. This just is my favorite crater, Tycho. And the mountain in the middle is about 5,000 feet. And how did you get a mountain in the middle? Because of the effect that you see in the picture on the right. And you can do this yourself. I've done it. You get a bowl of water at least about a foot across, okay? And you take a marble or a grape or black olives or whatever, and you drop it from 8 or 10 inches up, and you will see the effect that you see in the picture on the right happen. However, it's really fast. So if you take a video and you can slow it down, you will see it. Okay, it works. And so what happens? The marble hits the water, it makes that splash, the spike of water comes up, and it immediately flattens out, and you get a little ring of waves going away from it, and that's it. But that spike lasts for way less than a second. Okay, so the same thing happens on the moon. You get something 20 miles across, hits the moon, traveling at, I don't know, 40, 50,000 miles an hour, makes a big crater, but where it hits in the middle, it pushes the surface, the crust down, which means it compresses it, which means it's putting energy into that, compression energy into that crust. And you know how physics works. It doesn't like that. And so that energy causes the crust to pop back up. But it's not made out of water, so it doesn't instantaneously flatten out. Instead, it just stays there. So in a matter of seconds, I don't know how long, 5 seconds? I don't know exactly how that would work. You make a 5,000-foot mountain, and it stays there. Okay, there's no forces to make it go away, except a couple billion years of other impacts, I suppose. And so that's very common on the moon. And like I said, you'll see them on Mercury. I don't know if any of the impact craters on Earth show a mountain. I think there is one that does. But anyway, certainly Mars, you'll see them. And and whether or not you get a mountain or it will depend on several factors. How fast was the object moving? What was it made out of? Like, is it solid iron or is it a rubble pile? What's its diameter? Its mass? And not only what it's made out of, but what is that particular part of the moon's crust made out of? All those factors together, the physics, do some math, and you'll determine what kind of crater you're going to get and whether you get a mountain or not. So that's what that's all about. Okay, next. Oh, here is another fact of something that I'm sure many of you have seen on the moon, crater rays. All right, now you can see these two pictures. The crater on the left is Tycho, which I might have failed to mention is my favorite crater. I don't know if I mentioned that before. And then on the right, you see Copernicus. And boy, look at all those straight lines, more or less straight lines, emanating from the crater. These are called rays. Tycho's rays you can see with the naked eye. I'll show you that a little bit better later. And Copernicus easily visible in binoculars and telescopes. And so that stuff that makes those rays is referred to as ejecta. You're going to see that a little bit more later on too. And which means because it was ejected from the crater as a result of the impact. And these are two excellent examples on the moon. There are others too, but these are the two really, really great ones. And so that's item number, whatever, I can't see it on the screen.
Bill?
Yes, go ahead.
So why is Tycho so whitish on the ejecta?
Well, generally speaking, the surface of the moon has become dark with age. I can attest to that personally. And the age factor mostly has to do with radiation and particles from the sun. So when you get under the surface, you have an impact and it digs in the surface and throws stuff that wasn't on the surface out around the crater. It's almost always lighter colored. Okay, almost always. And that's just because that's the color of the stuff underneath the crust of the moon. And again, because it hasn't been exposed to the radiation of the sun. So that's what I have been told about that.
And then, and then the follow-up, some of those rays are like 800 miles long, right?
Yeah,
so I know the moon has 1/6 the gravity and it doesn't have weather, but I'm just surprised that they get ejected so far away.
Good point. 1/6 gravity certainly helps. But Tycho, you can see the doggone crater almost naked eye. It's a big crater, and so it was a big impact. And again, depending on the material of the impactor, depending on the material right at that point of the moon, the speed of the impact, you know, and then you end up with hundreds of miles of rays, I guess is the answer. Yeah, I mean, look at Copernicus. You know, that's a serious crater with a mountain in the middle. And a serious set of rays, no doubt about it. That's a lot of material that was thrown out, and it's also lighter than the material in that environment. Okay, that's a good point. Good point. Okay, so again, we're going to see some ejecta later, close up. Oh, speaking of craters, I got a little video to show you. I'm going to start to play it and stop it to make sure you can hear it. Okay, the narrator.
If you wanted to learn more about the history of the Earth and...
Did you hear the narrator?
Yes.
Okay, I will continue the video now. Just a couple of minutes talking about craters.
If you wanted to learn more about the history of the Earth and other rocky planets in the solar system, where would you look? For years, scientists have turned to one of the solar system's most common features, impact craters. Left over from earlier periods of our planet's history, these sometimes giant holes in the surface can teach us about the Earth based on how they've changed over time. However, since even the newest impact craters on the Earth have changed due to wind, rain, snow, and even lakes filling them, we need to compare them to a fresh crater that still looks like it did when it was first created. So where exactly can scientists find a crater like this? Certainly not on Earth, but there's one on the moon that's just about perfect. The Linné crater, a small impact crater located in the western Mare Serenitatis, is extremely young, and scientists have always thought that it might be a great example to use to compare with other craters. Now, thanks to high-resolution three-dimensional data generated from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, scientists are sure of it. So why use a crater on the moon, and why this specific example? Unlike craters on Earth, and even Mars, many moon craters are well preserved because they erode much more slowly. However, despite that, not all moon craters are ideal for comparison. After a crater is first formed, it can be impacted again and again by other objects, which modify its original shape. This is why scientists have been looking for a crater that's not so beaten up, and one that preserves all the telltale signs of how impact cratering works. The Linné crater fits the bill perfectly. By looking at the data from LRO's LROC instrument, scientists have confirmed that it has remained largely untouched aside from normal wear and tear, which is what makes it so perfect for comparison. They've also discovered some interesting and unexpected things. For decades, lunar scientists counted on the simplest craters, like Linné, as being bowl-shaped. However, thanks to the new data, scientists have discovered that they actually resemble an upside-down cone. This, along with other findings, sheds new light not only on Linné crater, but also on the evolution of similar craters on the Earth, Moon, and other planets, allowing us to get a better picture of our own history. In fact, the simple shape of Linné, and the way large boulders are strewn around its rim, are the basic tools of forensic geology that allow scientists to understand how craters start out on the Earth and Mars before water and wind wear them away. Without craters like Linné on the Moon, we wouldn't know how landforms evolve over time in the presence of weather, climate change, and other factors. And all by looking at what initially appears to be just another hole in the ground.
Okay, that's crater talk. All right, the next item. This isn't so much a fact about the moon. It's just such a great image. I couldn't resist. This is a crater called the Oriental Basin. Now, when you're looking at the moon, it's very, very hard to see because it's on the eastern edge of the moon during a full moon. And you can just barely see this part of it, the right-hand edge of it, on the eastern edge of the moon during a full moon. As you can see, it's darn big, about the size of the state of Texas. And it was made, the estimates of an asteroid 40 miles across. And think about that for a minute. A single rock 40 miles across. That's way bigger than Austin or the Houston metropolitan area. It's a huge rock. And not only is it big, but you can tell it has at least 4 different crater rims in one crater, resulting from a single impact. Notice, even though it was a big impact, no mountain in the middle, right? They're all different. But again, it's hard to see, but comparing it to the size of Texas, it's so dang big. I just wanted to make that one of the items to show you there. And, you know, if you get in a spacecraft and go orbit the moon, you'll get a great view of it. All right. Okay, next. Here's a question. And I used to love doing this when I would give this presentation in person. I would ask the question, I'm on a show of hands, which looks bigger from Earth, the sun or the moon? And I ask, how many people think the moon is bigger? And a bunch of hands go up. And how many people think the sun is bigger? And a bunch of hands go up. And then I get the great pleasure of saying, well, you're all wrong. And that's because from the Earth, well, in reality, the moon is 400 times closer than the sun, but the sun is 400 times bigger. Consequently, from Earth, they look the exact same size. Okay, as you can see in the picture on the left. Now, that picture on the left, obviously, I could have photoshopped it, but that's how they compare in size from as viewed from Earth, and that's why we can have total solar eclipses that work. Okay, when the moon moves in front of the sun just the right way, it completely blocks, as you know, many of you have seen, the bright part of the sun. And if you look at that picture in the lower right, you get to see even a little bit of this pink prominence here, which you normally can't see from Earth. And then, of course, the big deal is the corona, which means crown, and that you really only see unless you have a special spacecraft or if during the total solar eclipse. So it's because of this unbelievable coincidence that we're able to see this. Now, not only does that work beautifully, 400 times closer, but the sun is 400 times bigger, but the Earth, the surface of the Earth is the only surface in the solar system where you can see that. I don't care where you go on any other planet, if you're on the surface, and of course, the gas giants maybe don't count because, you know, what's their surface, but I think it's still there. You're not going to have a moon that perfectly covers the sun for you. Only on the Earth does that happen. And not only does it happen only here, but it only happens now. If you were taking notes, you might be able to look and see in your notes that I mentioned that the billions of years ago, the moon was much closer, which means it was bigger. Okay, which means when it went right in front of the sun, you wouldn't be able to see the prominences, and it would probably block a large part of the corona. Okay, and hundreds of millions of years from now in the future, it's going to be further, as we already stated, which means it's going to look smaller from Earth, which means when it moves directly in front of the sun, it's not going to cover it. And you're not going to have the beautiful total solar eclipse like we can see now. So first of all, the size, the distances that makes their sizes the same, what a coincidence. And the fact that we're on a planet where that works, and that it works now. Okay. And so it kind of blew my mind, the coincidence, shall we say, of all those items. So then I gave this presentation several times to the general public. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, it doesn't always work because then you get an annular eclipse, right?
Oh, really? Is that true? Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you, Ed McMahon. That's the next thing I was going to mention. You are correct, ma'am. I gave this presentation several times to the general public, and when I tell them this, they all nod their head up and down, right. And then I gave it to a bunch of very experienced astronomers, and the fellow in the front row, when I mentioned this particular screen, he gave me a look. His eye, He's looking at me side the evil eye, and as soon as I saw how he was looking, and I knew he was very experienced, he didn't have to say a word. I knew exactly. It hit me. It's going through my mind, and the answer is okay. So they're not always the exact same size. As we said, the orbits of the Earth and the Moon are not perfect circles. So sometimes they're closer, sometimes they're further. The distance from the Earth to the Sun changes 3 million miles in every orbit. Distance in the moon from the Earth to the Moon changes 31,000 miles in each orbit. So sometimes they're looking a little bigger and a little smaller. And if they're in their orbits just right, if the Earth is in the right orbit around the Sun, the Moon's in the right orbit around the Earth, all right, then the Moon eclipses the Sun. And as someone just mentioned, it does not completely cover the Sun. And we have an annular eclipse, as you can see in these pictures here. And the annular eclipse is shown on the left, a beautiful photograph. And of course, it's called an annular because that ring of the sun that shows even when the moon is right in the middle is referred to as an annulus. Okay. And the regular total solar eclipse is on the right. And so I put the comment over there. Do you get it? Okay. It's complicated. Right? The orbits are complicated. The lineup is complicated. And yeah, the moon and the sun is, quote, the same, but as was just stated, not always. Okay. So there you go. It's a nice coincidence. But as everything in nature, it's not exact, right? There you go. That's nature for you.
Hey, Bill.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you know if anybody has projected the orbits and when there will be no more total eclipses?
People have asked that question, and the people who just know about the eclipses better than everyone else has said, oh, like hundreds of millions of years or something like that. I didn't get a good answer from them, in other words. So I don't have a good answer for you. It's a darn good question. It's not a very useful question, but it's just interesting. And I would like to know that. I mean, who knows how long we'll be around as a species? I don't know. But it'll be... it's got to be
500 million.
Yeah, I was going to say hundreds of millions of years, but I don't really, that's about it. All I could tell you. Don't worry, you'll still get the opportunity to see total solar eclipses. So you and I both.
So the last figure that I found in my research is roughly 600 million years.
600 million. Okay, we were both right. You said 500,000. I said a couple hundred million. Thank you very much. Who said that?
Dawn,
thank you very much. I'm writing that down right now. 600 million. Yes, I might add that to the presentation. Thank you.
So Don, does that mean in 600 million years they'll all be annular?
I think that's the implication. Wouldn't you say, Don?
sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I think the implication is after the 600 million year time period, all eclipses will be annular.
That would make sense, or exception partial.
Or partials. Yeah, but yeah. Someone once told me that the difference between a total eclipse and a partial eclipse is like the difference between dying and not dying. They'll say, yeah, I didn't see the total, but I saw partial. And I have to grab them by the lapels and say, you got to go next time. It is not the same. But
my favorite analogy is that I've also been using in presentations is it's the equivalent to smelling a pizzeria place about 10 blocks away and getting
Oh, I'm from Chicago. You got me. You got me there. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that. Very interesting. 600 million. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm old. So when I was a kid, there were 3 theories for the origins of the moon. 1, the Earth and the moon were created together. No details. Okay. The early molten Earth spun fast enough to throw off a piece that was still held by Earth's gravity, and it became the moon. Number 3, the Earth was created without the moon, was created alone, and the moon was flying through the solar system, minding its own business, and it was captured by Earth's gravity as it flew past, and it went into a stable orbit, and then we got a moon, free of charge. When those 3 theories were thrown around back in the 50s, 60s, there was really no supporting evidence. They just thought, well, these are 3 things that could have could have happened. Okay. And then we went to the moon, and we've been studying it a lot. And actually, crater studies help us teach about the age of the moon. And then, of course, we brought the moon rocks back, and we studied the moon rocks at the individual atom level to look at the isotopes in the minerals in the moon. And then they came up with the new theory. And that is this, that 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was hit by an object, which they call Theia, which is approximately Mars size. They say it didn't hit the Earth straight on, but it was kind of a glancing blow, which they're trying to depict in this image here. And well, this diagram, it kind of shows you what happened. Theia came along and hit the Earth. There was a huge impact. Of course, a lot of material gets thrown up into the air. Some of that material is from the Earth's crust. Some of it's from the Earth's mantle. Some of it's from the crust of Theia and the mantle of Theia, if it had a mantle. And threw all this material up at a high enough speed to create a disk of debris around the Earth, right? It was still held by Earth's gravity. And after, I don't know, a couple million years, give or take, all of that debris coalesced because of gravity into the moon that we, quote, have today, unquote. Now, the first time I heard this, I said, hey, it's a great idea. Forget it. Come on, what are you talking about? But what we have learned about the moon, again, the age of the moon, the details of what makes up the crust of the moon, and the theories of what's underneath the moon, underneath the crust, is supported by this theory, or I should say, this data supports that theory. Okay, and compared to the other three that I showed earlier, it's the one that is best supported by data. So this is the one which I think if you bought a textbook now, they would say is the current theory. So we're going to talk about that a little more. I have another short video here, and we're going to play this video that's going to talk about the evolution of the moon. Did I hear there's a question?
Yeah, doesn't that also sort of explain why the moon is tidal locked? Because it's the result of a collision and hence is sort of unbalanced.
I've heard people say that there's a relationship between the impact and the tidal lock, but in my opinion, it's kind of like those first three theories. Yeah, that might be, but there was no good data to support it, that the tides of the Earth completely account for the locking of the near side of the moon facing us. So that's what I have heard. However, I have not heard everything. Okay. So there might be something to that, but I have heard people discuss that idea. Okay.
I mean, it's really just, if it's not a uniform distribution of a spherical distribution inside the moon, then the center of mass calculations are pretty simple on how it becomes tidally locked.
Yes. But listen, when you get hit according to the Theia theory, there is opportunity for controlling the motion of the moon, including tidally locking it. I think that's definitely possible, but I can't see any more than that.
Very cool shot. A lot of English.
Yes. Remind me not to play pool with you. Okay. Yes, this is the right English, and you're tidally locked, I think, is the what they say down at the pool parlor. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk. I got a short video here to show you a little bit more about the evolution of the moon.
Hello for the win.
From year to year, the moon never seems to change. Craters and other formations appear to be permanent now, but the moon didn't always look like this. Thanks to NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, we now have a better look at some of the moon's history. The moon likely started its life as a giant ball of magma formed from the remains of an impact on Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. After the hot material collected into a sphere, the magma began to cool, eventually forming a crust on the surface of the moon with the magma just underneath. Around 4.3 billion years ago, A giant impact battered the moon's south pole, forming the South Pole Aitken Basin and sending debris as far as the opposite side of the moon. This impact marked the beginning of a period that would cause large-scale changes to the moon's surface. One by one, more huge collisions shaped the terrain, some forming large basins that would eventually fill in to become the dark-colored patches of the moon, known as maria. They began as normal craters, but soon started to change due to the size of the impact on the relatively thin crust. Because the moon had not yet fully cooled on the inside, lava began to seep out through the cracks caused by the impacts. The resulting volcanic activity spread lava throughout the craters, gradually filling them in and cooling. Because of the high iron content of the basalt in the rock, the maria reflect less light and therefore appear darker than the surrounding highlands of the moon. Around 1 billion years ago, volcanic activity ended on the near side of the moon as the last of the large impacts made their mark on the surface. The moon continued to be battered by other impactors, although they were much smaller than the objects that formed the largest basins. Some of the largest, most recent, and best-known impacts from this period include the Tycho, Copernicus, and Aristarchus craters, which are unique due to the complex system of rays that stretch out from the impact site. Finally, we arrive at the moon that we see today. Though the surface continues to be affected by impacts, the rate has slowed down drastically to the point where the moon appears unchanging to the human eye, as a permanent record of its own history, and a glimpse of how craters may have formed here on Earth.
There's the Oriental Basin, by the way, lower left. Okay. The next thing I want to show you, this is just one of my favorites. You know, everybody has always been talking about the man in the moon. Some people see a rabbit in the moon and stuff like that. But this is the one I love the best in terms of seeing an image in the moon. And it's we call the moon maiden. And on the left, you can see the maiden, right? The drawing that shows you the maiden. And then on the right, you can see how we come to that crazy conclusion. The areas around the Sea of Tranquility are her hair. This dark spot is her eye. And here's her nose and her mouth and her chin and her neck. And then on the bottom of her neck, she's wearing a necklace with a jewel in it. The jewel, by the way, is the crater Tycho, which I might have not mentioned is my favorite crater. Okay. I don't know if I have remembered to mention that. Anyway, so there's Tycho, and look at all those crater rays. Anyway, so that's the moon maiden. Now, you can see this with the naked eye. And I tell, you know, when I talk to the public about the moon, I always show this out to them. But let me tell you, in a pair of binoculars or even a smallest telescope, it is just so easily to be seen. And then people immediately recognize it as the moon maiden. In my opinion, it's easy to be seen anyway. So next time you're out there taking a look, well, we're at about the full moon now, right? Or just past it. Check it out. Okay. All right, next. Here's something I didn't know about until maybe, I don't know, about 10 years ago. We're used to seeing the moon, right? You always see the same part of the moon. It always faces the Earth. But everybody I knew and all the places I've ever visited were in the Northern Hemisphere. If you go to the Southern Hemisphere, the moon's upside down. Not because, of course, the moon's upside down, but, oh, and by the way, the square circle is around the crater Tycho. Did I tell you? Oh, maybe I mentioned that to you. Anyway, the moon's not upside down, of course. It's because, as you can see, this person here in the Northern Hemisphere is looking at the moon, and she is seeing the moon the way we always see it. And then she takes a hypersonic jet really fast in just a few minutes, and boom, she's all the way on the Southern Hemisphere, and she's looking at the same moon just a few minutes later because she was able to travel really fast. And it's going to look like we saw in the previous picture. Tycho's at the top and all the dark areas at the bottom. And this isn't important, but I never thought about it until, again, about 10 years ago when I learned about this. So that's just another fact about the moon. Okay. Oh, and if I was in person with you, I would ask for a show of hands of people who have seen this from the Southern Hemisphere, Australia, Argentina, or South Africa, or someplace like that. But we can't do that today. The next fact about the moon really isn't a fact about the moon, but this picture, it was first seen from Apollo 8 in 1968. I was a teenager, and the picture just so marvelous. I had it hanging over my desk at work for easily 10 years. And of course, they call it Earthrise, but well, you may know that the reason they took the picture is the astronauts were in a spacecraft orbiting the moon, 1968, Apollo 8, and they did not expect to see this. And they look out the window and doggone it, they see, like on the left, the Earth is poking its head up above the horizon. They said, holy mackerel, get the camera out, put in color film, take a picture of that. And they did. And of course, it was to galvanize the world. Everybody loved that picture. And then on the right is a similar picture. But the thing is, it's called Earthrise. However, the only way you can see this, well, for instance, we already learned, if you look at your notes, that the same face of the moon is always facing Earth. Earth is turning on its axis all the time, right? That's why we see the moon rise and set. But same part of the moon is facing Earth. And so if you were standing, let's say, in the middle of the full moon, and you'd see the Earth up above you, it would never move. It's always in the same place in the sky. And when they sent the Apollo astronauts, that was good because they were never out of contact with the Earth, right? But so you don't see Earthrise on the moon as such, right? Unless you get in a spaceship and you go in orbit around the moon, and then you're moving, and that's what causes the Earthrise. So the astronauts were very fortunate. That's obviously a view that very few people have had an opportunity to see. And again, if you're on the moon, you don't really see it rise, you just see it up in the sky. But such a great picture. Go ahead.
I may add, you've made the same error that I've made in the one on my wall, in that you've placed it in the human-centric perspective, but actually the astronauts saw it with the moon on the right and the Earth on the left, because they came around the moon.
Exactly. They were in a more or less equatorial orbit, so it was it was on the side of the moon. Very good point.
Dark side, they came into the Earth, and so
yes,
this is where the artists who printed this picture in December of '68 took the human license rather than the correct astronomical license.
Because they called it Earthrise, and that kind of made sense to do it that way. Absolutely, human-centric attitude. Absolutely right. A good point. Thank you very much for that. Yes, yes.
I'm going to change that on my picture on my wall, but my wife won't have it because it confuses everybody.
Okay. I could understand that. However, I like your idea. I like that idea. It helps you remember what happened. In my opinion, I like that idea. Very good. Thank you. Earthrise. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the inside of the moon. Now, as you know from our previous discussion, this picture is not to scale. The moon is not the same size as the Earth, but I just wanted to show you that just the way the Earth has a solid crust, a solid core, a liquid core, a mantle, and a relatively thin crust, the moon has the same thing. But if you look at the Earth's crust, it's 1,300 kilometers in diameter. The moon's solid core is 240 kilometers in diameter, so it's much, much smaller, but it has the same general configuration. And of course, this is true for what they call the terrestrial planets, the inner planets, right? And here's another picture that shows that. So you see Earth and Venus over here, and in the diagram in the center, you can see the orange part is the part of their radius that is their crust, that is their core. And then you can see the mantle and the thin crust. And then look on the left, you see the picture of the moon, and then this yellow part, and you can see that its core and mantle is significantly smaller, okay, which we know because the moon is significantly smaller, but it just gives you an idea of the difference between the Earth and the moon. And I find the other interesting part is you look at Mercury, it's almost all core, okay, compared to the other planets. And so it's a solid thing, that's for sure. And the speculation is that's because all the volatiles were gone and only the heavy solid stuff stayed when Mercury formed near the sun. But I'm not so sure about that. I don't know. So that's the inside of the moon. Now, we went to the moon, we brought back rocks. Oh, how does NASA keep the moon rock safe? Well, they keep them in a safe. That's how they keep them safe. As you can see the picture here, it has a big Sirius door, okay, at the Lunar Sample Laboratory Facility at Johnson Space Center in Houston. And I've had an opportunity to go visit there. But it's not just like an ordinary vault with shelves and boxes. On the lower right, you can see it's got all this equipment in there so that they could examine the rocks in the safe, in the lab. All right. They don't have to be shipping around town or even to some other place in the world. They're much too valuable. So they keep them in there and they can do all their examines. These white balls that you see are the glove boxes. You know, you stick your hands in these white things and they become gloves inside the box, and you can handle the moon rocks and then keep the moon rocks in a no oxygen environment so that they're not deteriorated by the oxygen. So obviously they're safeguarding them by putting them in a safe, but they're also safeguarding them from the atmosphere to keep them so that they don't deteriorate. And you may have heard when they brought the moon rocks back in the 60s and 70s, they purposely put aside several of them and didn't even open the canisters on them until the last 2 years or so. They opened some up because they knew back in the 60s and 70s, we are going to develop better technology for investigating and analyzing these samples. And so we're going to leave them locked up in their canisters until we get that new technology. And they started doing that in the last 2 years. And, you know, maybe we'll go back to the moon and get some more, huh? We'll talk about that later. So that's the safe. Now, so we spent a lot of money and took a lot of risks and went to the moon and brought back rocks. But sometimes moon rocks come to us. We already talked about the big impacts on the moon. These impacts are very energetic. They throw a lot of material up into space. Some of that material is moving at a high rate of speed, fast enough to leave the moon's gravity. And if we're lucky, it gets attracted by Earth's gravity. It falls on the Earth. We find it as a meteorite, and they can examine, again, at the atomic level, the material in these meteorites. And since we know what the moon's rocks are like, we've looked at a lot of them, they can determine, oh, this particular meteorite came from the moon. And there's a couple hundred of them. Notice that somewhere between 140 and 350, because some people have different opinions about things. And also you get one that falls and it breaks into 10 pieces. So do you call that one meteorite or do you call it 10? You know, it gets dicey there. So we've got lots of them. So occasionally the moon rocks come to us. By the way, the same thing, we've identified meteorites from Mars, to get off topic here for a second. In a similar fashion, in the 70s, we put the 2 Viking landers on Mars. They stayed there for many months and collecting and examining the atmosphere of Mars. We find meteorites that look like they might be from Mars. When these impacts occur, a lot of the rock is molten. And so bubbles form in the molten rock, and those bubbles will be filled with the atmosphere from wherever they were formed. In that case on Mars, we can get those meteorites, we can examine them very carefully and extract the atmosphere, the gases from those bubbles, and we see at the isotope level, at the atomic level, they match the Martian atmosphere perfectly. So when we see that kind of match, we say this is a Mars rock. That obviously atmosphere isn't an issue with the moon, but we just have moon rocks that we can compare. So that's how we know the moon meteorites are moon rocks. So that's that deal. Now the phases of the moon. Now I'm going to show you a video, and first I'm going to start it and then I'm going to stop it so I can explain it a little bit. This is the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, took pictures of the moon for a year straight. Took those pictures and turned them into this video. Now, you see the big picture of the moon in the middle, okay? That's what if you look in the lower right, on January 2nd of 2013, at that particular time, 8 o'clock universal time, that's what the phase of the moon was from the Earth, all right? And you're gonna see it does this for the entire year of 2013. over on the left, you'll see the Earth and the moon. And as I start the video, you'll see the moon going around the Earth in its orbit. You can see both the Earth and the moon are illuminated by the sun, obviously from the same direction. All right. And so if you're on the dark part of the Earth and you're looking at the moon, you are seeing the moon in the phase that it is in the beginning of in the middle of the picture. Okay. Now, behind the big picture of the moon, you see that horizontal line. On the left, there's the Earth. Okay. And over on the right, you see a little circle. That's the moon. And remember, we said sometimes the moon's closer and sometimes it's further. You will see that little circle moving back and forth. And the numbers 28, 30, and 32 are the number of Earth diameters that the moon is from the Earth. Okay, that's a little bit easier to read than all the miles, kilometers, and things. So I'm going to start the video. Oh, by the way, you will also see, as we said, the moon sometimes is closer, so it's bigger. Sometimes it's further, so it's smaller. You will see this big picture, if you look carefully, in the middle, a change in size. And you will also see it wobble back and forth, okay? And in the lower left, you see this picture of the moon with the same phase, and you see the blue circle and the yellow circle. They indicate exactly how that wobble is happening at that time, okay? One other quick thing I want to mention before I start the video, it gets kind of hypnotic, is that you can see that in the Earth-Moon picture in the upper left, the sun is almost right below them, below and slightly to the right. That will change because that changed over the year 2013 when these pictures were taken. And you will see that it all fits together. And I won't play the whole thing because it's long, but here we go. Hang in there. So now the moon's illuminated on the side we can't see, so you're at new moon. When it comes over on the right, it'll be at first quarter. And when it comes to the upper left of the Earth, we will be seeing a full moon. We're seeing the full illuminated surface. And on the right, you can see now at this point, the moon's coming in closer, so it's getting a little bigger, the big image. It stops, and then it, because of its orbit, it's moving away and it's getting smaller. And if you look at the Earth and the moon on the left, you can see the sun is now illuminating from the right. So things are changing throughout the year. Now we're in February, March, and that's pretty much how it goes every month. Okay, there's not a lot of change except the things that I've mentioned there. And you got the beautiful classical music. I think this was a beautiful display that NASA did, and it really shows what's going on. So even though I think this is darn exciting, I'm going to stop it unless somebody says, oh gosh, Bill, please play the whole year. I can do that. Again, I got to be in bed by midnight, but other than that, I got plenty of time.
Bit to the wobble seems so amazingly largely pronounced. I didn't realize.
Yes.
Large.
Yes. Well, again, the diagram in the lower left gives you an idea of how severe it is, and that's why some people they monitor. They know exactly when the moon's going to be wobbling to the left or to the right in this image, and so when it does, you'll be able to see parts that are normally past the horizon, if you will, past what would normally be the limb of the moon. Some craters that you don't normally see because of the wobble. Okay, so some people get excited about that. That's a nice thing. You get to see a part of the moon you don't normally see. Not much of it, but a little bit.
So, Bill, that's called libation, right? And
yes.
You can see up to 59% of the surface of the moon instead of 50.
Yes, 50. Okay, I didn't know the number. 59. Correct. Yes. Right. So I really like the part where you can see it get bigger and smaller too, and you can match that with the moon moving on the horizontal line on the right there. It all works, doggone it, And so unless there's another comment, I'm going to end the video and we'll move on to the next thing. Okay.
Are the numbers on the right where the moon is sliding between 28 and 32? Is that kilometers or is that?
No, I'm sorry. I thought I mentioned that. That's number of Earth diameters from the Earth.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. You see on the bottom right now, it shows distance, 398,000 kilometers. And then what does it show? 31.3 Earths. And sure enough, it's at 31 plus, on the horizontal line there. Okay.
Bill, run it 30 more seconds.
Say again, please.
30 more seconds.
I don't understand what you're saying.
30 more seconds, please.
On the video.
Oh, you want me to play it some more? Oh, God bless you. Sure. 30 seconds. You got it. No problem. I'll try to count. Oh, shoot. Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
There you go. Okay. It's in.
It's a nice full moon. Okay, here's a new moon. Time to go out and observe deep sky objects. How's that? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, by the way, look at the Earth now, illuminated from the upper left, so you can see how it's all changes throughout the year. Okay, very good. The next item isn't a fact about the moon. We're getting close to the end here. I'm sorry it's taking so long. But we landed on the moon successfully in the Apollo 6 times. The last 3, we took a car with us. Okay. The lunar rover. Now, there's 2 reasons why we took the car. One, we were Americans. Okay. Hey, we're going somewhere. We're taking a car. All right. And the case closed. All right. And so here is the lunar rover on one of the missions. It's powered by electricity. You can see the astronauts sitting in there. You can see the big antenna, which is how they can communicate with the Earth. And then this thing on the front is a video camera. The astronaut has another video camera mounted on his chest. And you can see the back wheel, there's dust flying up. You're going to see plenty of that. This video used to be really ugly and grainy when they first took it. And then about 5, 6, 7 years ago, they cleaned it up and it causes it to be jerky. The edges are jerky, but the lunar rover just is in so much better. It's so much clearer than it was before. So I'm going to continue this and then watch how he drives, and you'll see the dust flying and all the craters. And I made them. Okay, here we go. So there's no sound. You see him. He's making he makes a lot of left-hand turns. I think he was used to watching NASCAR. Okay, it's always left-hand turns. And there's his lunar lander, of course. Look at how bumpy it is on the craters. And look at the dust that's flying. And notice he's going toward the lunar lander. And then again, he makes another left-hand turn and goes by the lunar lander. And he makes another left-hand turn. And see if you can tell what he's doing in this little...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, donuts.
He's bouncing around a lot. Okay, I'll tell you what he's doing. He's having a lot of fun. He's not doing anything of significance except he's saying, I ain't going to get a chance to do this again. Doggone it. So here he is from the other astronaut taking a picture of him. And here's looking out the front of the lunar rover. I mean, if you were out there, you would do the same thing. I know I would, right? Have some fun with this because you ain't going to get another chance. That's for sure. So this is what it looks like. You got hills and rocks and craters and yeah, it's got to be a lot of fun. Well, look at that rough terrain. You got to be careful. You don't want to flip the lunar rover, $100 million or whatever it costs to develop it. But that's what the moon is like. Okay, that's the end of that. The next thing here, and I think we're getting towards the end. I think this is number 21. Is Apollo 16. And again, it's not a fact on the moon. So I apologize for that, but it shows the astronauts walking on the moon. And it's several interesting things in it. And it's just right off the television, and you will hear the narrator tell you what's going on. And you might spot some things here.
Apollo 16 astronauts John Young and Charles Duke took their second moonwalk today, staying on the surface longer than anyone had before, 7 hours and 12 minutes, and obviously enjoying it throughout. ABC Science editor Jules Bergman reports. The second lunar exploration began with Young and Duke driving 2.5 miles to Stone Mountain in the lunar rover, and then climbing 800 feet up its slopes to get rock and soil samples. The mountain dominates the Descartes landing site. The TV camera caught bright white ejected debris hurled out from South Ray Crater by relatively recent meteorite impacts. They drove, walked through, and worked in boulder-strewn fields. Charlie Duke, driving a penetrometer into the lunar soil, fell, but quickly regained his footing. They hammered away at multicolored rock to get chipped samples.
I've been hammering on the ring.
Several times they pushed and shoved on large boulders, trying to get undisturbed samples from underneath, but never were able to get one of the rocks overturned.
I can move it, I can rock it. Wait a minute, let's go over here. Look, let's not put no effort into it. I believe we can. I believe we can push. I believe we can push it this way. Well, let's get a chunk off of it before we, okay?
They got scores of rock and soil samples, occasionally dropping sample plastic bags, and again finding that the site has a much higher magnetic field than earlier expected.
Okay, and we're going to have to pack up and head home. Boy, is this fun.
Yes, it's fun.
Tomorrow they tackle the third
Okay,
and last.
that's all I wanted to show you of that. Now, when I give this presentation in 2019 and sometimes afterwards, people say, oh, Bill, this is all kind of like old information. What's new? Is there anything new on the moon? And so I have an epilogue to the presentation. What's next? What's next is we are going back to the moon. Now, I know this was covered in the newsletter this week, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about here. How are we going to the moon? Well, we're going with NASA's Artemis project. All right, now you see the logo there on the right. And in case you were wondering, Artemis was the twin sister of Apollo and the goddess of the hunt. So twin sister of Apollo, that's why and I'm sure that's why they named this Artemis. So why are we going to the moon? Well, for very specific reasons. To learn more about the origin of the moon, the Earth, and the solar system. To look for water and rare minerals on the moon, which could be useful. To learn how to go to Mars, because that's in the schedule. And to establish a long-term presence on the moon. And that, of course, is part of the Mars mission also. If we learn how to stay on the moon, we could be better adapted to spending a couple of years on Mars if we have to. So that is the main reasons why we're going. And then when are we going to the moon in Artemis? Well, the last information I was able to get is 2024 or 2025. That's with a crew. Okay. So and I got the question marks there. You know how these projects go. Remember when the Webb was supposed to launch about 8 years ago? Things happened, right? Things happen. So that's the current estimate with a crew. But who is going to go to the moon? Well, the answer is the next man and the first woman will go to the moon. And it makes my heart sing. Okay. There she is. She's looking pretty happy about that. I don't know if she's going to be the one in the crew, but she's demonstrating a spacesuit. And I look at that face and I think she'd like to go. So those people are going to go. And you may recall, we've already did a test in space in 2014, which seems like a million years ago now. We, for the first time, tested the Orion multi-purpose crew vehicle. That, of course, is just this little section up here at the top of this rocket. This was not the Artemis moon rocket, the SLS rocket. This was the so-called Delta IV Heavy rocket. And the Orion multi-purpose crew vehicle did 2 orbits around the Earth to test out its avionics, electronics, computers, etc., and more importantly, the heat shield, because it was going to come back at the Earth at 20,000 miles an hour, similar to the speed coming back from the moon. So that happened in 2014, and man, I don't know if you remember it, but it was very successful and it was really exciting. And so that started way back then. They've been working on this project for a while, right? And I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess most of you who watch the news know that the Artemis 1 is scheduled for August 29th. Now that is also without a crew, except I think it has a mannequin in a spacesuit. And it will be on the real Artemis moon rocket, the Space Launch System, SLS rocket, as you see in these pictures. And I don't know why this is true, they say the mission will be between 26 and 42 days. And so it will return between late September and early October. And I don't understand why there's that variability there. I know it's going to do 2 orbits around the moon and then come back. Very strange orbits, like the 2 orbits are completely different from each other. But, and then I put the numbers here that shows you the amount of thrust coming from the SLS. It's even bigger than the Saturn V in terms of thrust. And so doggone it, you know, stay tuned, if you will, for on August 29th. I hope that things go off well, and we'll see. And then a little piece of trivia here, in the rocket, since they won't actually have a crew, they're packing all kinds of artifacts. Mission patch from Apollo, actually a small Apollo 11 moon rock, and a bolt from an Apollo 11 Saturn V engine, some Girl Scout science badges, one of the pen points that was used to draw the Snoopy cartoon. Why? Because, shoot, Apollo 10, yeah, I think it was Apollo 10, the lunar lander, which went in orbit around the moon but didn't land on the moon, was called Snoopy. Okay, so this the fellow who drew Snoopy, I forget his name now, he used the pen.
Yeah.
Hello?
Charles Schultz.
There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. There is a 3D printed Artemis statue. Of course, they got to have that. A pebble from the Dead Sea. Not exactly sure why. The lowest place on Earth, maybe. I don't know. And then many other things. Look at this big box. It's full of stuff. And they're going to put that on the moon. That is, God, for those of you who stayed, thank you very much for your attention. That's what I wanted to show you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for your attention. I'm available for questions if you have any.
Bill, I have a question. This is Chris.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you speak to the dust on the moon? I forget where I read this, but I heard it's very fine, very abrasive. They were seeing even problems with the dust on the Apollo missions. Did I remember that correctly? Do you know how they are trying to account for that on the Artemis missions, if that is correct?
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Well, I have heard that it is like talcum. Some of it is a talcum powder fine at that level. Okay. I've also, one of the Apollo astronauts, I could tell you some story. I used to volunteer at Johnson Space Center, and I got to talk to a lot of old timers. Man, we don't have time tonight, probably a lot of great stories. But anyway, one of the Apollo astronauts, I think actually was 2, they put together a little, a cardboard card with material on it that was a scratch and sniff material. And they said they made it so that it smelled just like moon dust. And you say, wait, how did they smell it? When they went outside, they had their spacesuits on. That's true. But if you saw them when they were walking around in that video, their spacesuits got covered with it. They'd come back in the LEM, take off their helmet, and then they could smell that stuff. And they said it smelled like gunpowder, like a firecracker went off. Some people say it reminded them of a barbecue grill. Okay, so burning carbon, I guess, might be the connecting factor here. And again, and it clings to the spacesuits. And I learned once a long time ago, someone gave me a sample of ash from an Earth volcano, Mount St. Helens, and in a bottle, and because he lived up there. And I said, I don't always think straight. So I said, I'm going to open this bottle and smell it. But I remember my chemistry teacher said, when you have something, you're going to smell it and you really don't know what it is. Don't just stick your nose in it and smell it. Just with your hand, wave over the surface and get a little bit towards your nose to smell it, as small an amount as possible. And I promptly stuck my nose in it and smelled it. Okay. And holy mackerel, it was like knives going into my respiratory system. Okay. So Miss Vish, Miss Hanlon, my chemistry teacher, my apologies for not listening, but I have every reason to believe that that there's a good chance that some of the dust on the moon could be not very nice to breathe. And that's about all I know about the moon dust. The smell, it's clingy to the spacesuits, and don't breathe it.
Yeah, I remember watching an episode of Mythbusters about they were debunking a lot of the moon stuff. And the moon dust, like on Earth, sand particles, they get rounded, right, because of weatherization. On the moon, they don't. So they have much more jagged edges.
There you go.
The craters stay for a long time. The footprints they made, they don't wear down because those jagged edges can lock together better and they don't fall apart.
That would explain my daggers.
Yep.
Yes. I bet you're right. Yeah, makes sense. So, hey, my guess is if Artemis does the kind of things that they're expecting to do, we might get a little bit more info about that. We'll see how it goes. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Bill?
Yes, go ahead.
I have seen an article talking about this, and the biggest issue was the electrostatic cling of the dust onto the suits.
Yes.
And one of the approaches they're taking is producing a fabric for the suit that is essentially an electrostatic repellent.
Ah, well, okay.
Dust from clinging to the suits.
I guess, they think the dirty suits don't look classy. You want to have a clean suit, right? But I think they also don't want to be bringing a lot of dust into their lander or their habitat or whatever they're going to live in.
The bigger problem was just the dust getting into the my understanding was the bigger problem was the dust that was carried into the lander also got into the door seals and everything else.
There you go.
And began to door seals.
Nothing but
and
trouble.
They were looking at, I think there was a maximum timeline that they could be on the moon before those seals failed.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Now we're talking serious problem, not just how good your spacesuit looks.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of a dirty suit. It's that abrasive inside where it coats everything else.
I'm thinking about electrical components too. That might be trouble. I'm just guessing. By the way, I just noticed this picture I got on the screen now. There's your Oriental Basin.
Yeah.
Can you imagine mythology if that was a sign pointed towards Earth?
Yes. Well, this has to be taken from a spacecraft. That's right. Any other questions or comments?
I've got one that's more related to travel to Mars.
Yes.
Is NASA going to be able to come up with some way to protect the astronauts from the cosmic radiation and solar radiation on the long journey there and back?
I got to see a presentation from, well, first of all, they must, okay, you got to. And they're going to, and I know that they're working hard on it because at least 5 years ago, a fellow from NASA came to one of the astronomy clubs, gave a presentation. The first step is to measure that radiation. And they produced a device that measures it very, very precisely. And not only that, measures all the different types of particles and radiation. And they were giving it to the guys on the space station. Okay, so because then these devices would be up there with each of them for many, many months, and in some cases years, right? So that was several years ago. And they were concerned about being on the space station, but obviously what you brought up on Mars, this is serious. Shielding, people talk about maybe using magnetic fields and things. I have not heard anything definitive as this is how we're going to protect people. Again, we got a couple of years from going on the moon. Mars is further out, but I am certain, I know that they're working on that, but I don't know, I don't have a good answer for you as to how they're going to do it. One of the things is go underground, right? And build a habitat out of a thick layer of Mars surface material. And hopefully that would do it. But I haven't heard any definitive answers on that.
I think there was one mission plan for a robotic probe to try to do some kind of measurements with a couple of known openings into lava tubes.
There you go. Yeah, the lava tubes, they're like caves that are already built for us, and if we could measure that, that would be great.
I think that's actually one of the reasons why they tested out that helicopter on the last mission.
There you go. I believe it. That sounds perfect. Yeah.
But I'm thinking more along the lines of just the radiation exposure on the trip there and the trip back, not while they're on.
There you go.
And you know, creating a magnetic field seems like the only way to do it, because you certainly can't shield it with enough lettering like that. You never get off the ground or off Mars, off the moon to go there.
Sir, you're absolutely right. You know, this has been a topic of conversation since the 1970s. I remember hearing this, and again, here we are where we are now. And there's no definitive answer yet that I've heard. So, you know, it's a big deal. But you go to ask the astronauts, gee, there's a problem with radiation. Do you still want to go? Heck yeah. Can we go tomorrow? Tomorrow radiation? Yeah, good. Yeah, I know. Fine. Okay, let's go. Okay. They got, you know, there's certain kind of people who want to do this. And I think they're ready. I'm sure NASA's going to do everything they can to protect them that way, but we'll have to stay tuned. The jury's not out on that yet.
That's the worst. You get eyes.
Any other questions, anybody? Well, thank you so much, Bill.
Oh, thank you. For all of you who stayed with us, you're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It was a real pleasure. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay, yeah. We know you have a lot of other talks, and so we would love to have you come back for some of the other ones that you have. So,
oh, you have the list.
Yeah, I saw.
Okay.
We had a debate as to what we wanted to hear tonight, and we chose this, but there are a lot of other ones that I'd like to hear. So
it's hard to pick a topic from looking at a list like that, but anybody who wants to talk about it, you know, I talked extensively with Jamie about these things. Anybody who wants to talk about it, I can give you the details and you can make up your mind, whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, well, I guess that's it for the meeting, and we've been going over to the Pizza Press on West 26th Street for pizza. So if you go over there, we'll see you there. Unless there's anything else.
I might have made a mistake because I might have neglected something, because I saw someone in the chat asked me what my favorite crater is.
Gee, I don't know.
Copernicus, right?
It's pretty hard now.
Yeah, it's Tycho. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just noticed that.
It's got to be Clavius.
Clavius, yes, Clavius. Good 2001.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay,
All right. Thanks, everybody.